Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT9, and BT9 offers us lots of new and powerful tools to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be a new iteration on the Garurumon Tribal deck. So the Garurumon Tribal deck is usually a very aggressive deck focused around multi-attacking, so most of the time what you're going to do with those multi-attacks is draw and try to hit your opponent's security as hard as you possibly can, and the X Antibody line just only adds to that game plan. So without further ado, onto the actual deck profile. Starting off with the Digitama, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Tsunomon. So Tsunomon is a stereotypical DP boosting Digitama, where during your turn, if this Digimon's name contains Garurumon or Omnimon, then it gets plus 1000 DP, so virtually everything in our deck except for our Gabumons is going to be able to reap the benefits of this DP boost. And we actually want to DP boost our Digimon over having a Digitama that draws. You could have a Digitama that draws if you really wanted to, but I want to try to make sure and ensure that my Digimon are going to be living when I'm going to be attacking the opponent's security, just so that they have a higher chance because they do multi-attack, and blue doesn't have as big of a reach as red does when it comes to increasing the overall DP of our Digimon to make our Digimon as safe as possible when we're swinging with them. And for that very similar style of reasoning, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Demivemon from the All 4 starter deck as the 5th Digitama for some more DP boosting. So the difference is the condition in which we're getting the DP, and Demivemon is still pretty good just because he's playing into a sub-theme that Garurumon likes to play into, which is having lots of cards in your hand. So its condition states that during your turn, if you have 8 or more cards in your hand, then this Digimon gains plus 1000 DP, making it another easy DP boost for us to use. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Gabumon. So this is the BT01 version of Gabumon, and this is only in the deck just because, well, yes, it is a Gabumon by name, but it also has a nice on-play ability that allows us to draw a card, essentially replacing itself when we either Digivolve into it or hard play it onto the field to be able to make our deck a little bit more consistent with various different forms of card draw. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gabumon. So this is the BT05 version of Gabumon, and this is going to be one of the deck's stereotypical diggers. So its on-play ability states that we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, add 1 Digimon with Garurumon in its name, and 1 Digimon with Omnimon in its name, and then place them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So it is just looking for our various Garurumons and Omnimons, which is going to be the vast majority of what's in our deck, so it's going to have a high chance of success. And similarly to why we're running the BT5 Gabumon, I'm also going to be running 4 copies of Gabumon X Antibody. So Gabumon X Antibody is really good just because he has that X Antibody alternative evolution cost where we could Digivolve him on top of another Gabumon for 0. So this is really good to pair up with our other Gabumons, not only just to get an extra card draw for Digivolving a level 3 on a level 3 to help with our overall cycling, but it also has a nice on-play when Digivolving ability, so whether you hard play it or Digivolve up into it, we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, and then we get to add 1 X Antibody and 1 card with a Garurumon or Omnimon in its name and place it into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So this is just looking for our X Antibody options and our other Garurumon/Omnimons, which is, again, the vast majority of our deck, making him just another really good searching or digging tool for the deck to use. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Gabumon. So this is the starter deck version of Gabumon from the All Force Vidramon starter deck, and this is just another way to DP boost our Digimon in Gabumon form. So he has the nice inheritable ability where during all turns, as long as we have 8 or more cards in our hand, then this Digimon gains plus 1000 DP, and that all turns could make it even harder for the opponent to interact with our Digimon during their turn as well. And having a hand of 8 or more cards is not going to be hard in this deck, just because blue has lots of good draw tools and good cycling. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Garurumon. So this is the BT05 version of Garurumon, and this is a really good tempo card to digivolve into to try to accelerate our evolutions. So what this card is doing is when we digivolve up into him, if it has a Gabumon in its Digivolution source, then we get to gain 1 memory, effectively making him Evo for 1 versus his normal Evo for 2. So the cool thing is this does kind of combo with Gabumon X Antibody, where you could digivolve a Gabumon X Antibody on top of a Gabumon, then digivolve on top of X Antibody into Garurumon, and you'll still be able to gain the memory because there is still just a Gabumon in its stack. But it's also a good card to use for its inheritable ability, where during all turns, while this Digimon has Garurumon or Omnimon in its name, then this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP, adding to the overall DP range that we're trying to extend to. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Garurumon X Antibody. So Garurumon X Antibody, like the other X Antibodies, could basically digivolve on top of his base form for 0. So he could digivolve on the other Garurumons for 0, which is really nice, just because we could start cycling cards with our X Antibodies. On top of that, we actually do want to have Digimon of the same level in our inheritable sources for his inheritable ability to take advantage of, where it adds some extra protection, where during all turns, when this Digimon with Garurumon or Omnimon in its name would be deleted by battle, then we get to trash 2 cards of the same level from this Digimon's Digivolution source to be able to prevent that deletion. So it's almost, in this case, like we're adding pseudo-jamming, because most of the time we're going to be swinging into the opponent's security, and blue doesn't necessarily have the biggest range of DP, so it's just adding some extra protection for when we're going to be swinging into the opponent's security, which we're going to tend to do a lot in this deck. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of the Promo Garurumon. So the Promo Garurumon, I do value the card draw off of this card, just because we could actually draw a lot with his inheritable ability to be able to easily set up our hand for whatever we need it to be. So his inheritable ability states that when attacking, if this Digimon's name contains Garurumon, then we get to draw 1 card. This is not once per turn, so every single time we're going to be attacking with anything on top of this Garurumon that is a Garurumon, we're going to be drawing a card, which we have lots of different ways to be able to unsuspend and attack with our Digimon over and over again. Next, on to the Ultimates, I'm going to be running 3 copies of WereGarurumon X Antibody. So, WereGarurumon X Antibody, like the other X Antibodies, can digifall for 0 on his base form. In this instance, it's going to be with our other WereGarurumons. Then, on top of that, he has a nice when digivolving ability, where we get to unsuspend this Digimon. So, ideally, we're going to attack with a WereGarurumon, unsuspend him, and then we'll be able to attack with this card again. If this Digimon has WereGarurumon or X Antibody in its Digivolution source, then we get to return one of the opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon back to their hand, so it could get rid of some mid to low level Digimon to act as some extra control for us literally just digivolving up into them and wanting to multi-swing as often as we possibly can. But in terms of our primary WereGarurumon that we want to see as often as we possibly can, it's going to be 4 copies of the Promo WereGarurumon. So the Promo WereGarurumon is just that insane of a card for us to be using in this deck, just because of how aggressive we can make this deck. So his native ability is a when attacking ability once per turn. If this Digimon has Garurumon in its Digivolution source, then we get to unsuspend this Digimon. So just going up into this, we could already multi-attack, line up those extra draws off of our promo, and still have the safety of wanting to attack it because of his inheritable ability off of the Garurumon X Antibody, or any of our DP boosts that we're applying to him. Then, on top of that, he has a nice inheritable ability, where during your turn, while we have 8 or more cards in our hand, then this Digimon gains Security Attack Plus to make whatever is going to be on top of him even more aggressive. And then to round out our ultimate package, I'm going to be running 1 copy of WereGarurumon Sagittarius Mode. So WereGarurumon Sagittarius Mode, unlike the BT5 version of Sagittarius Mode, actually does count as a WereGarurumon, but like X Antibody, could still digivolve on top of a WereGarurumon. So we could use this in combination with our other WereGarurumon to be able to just get a free evolution after he's done swinging before we want to try to go into our WereGarurumon X Antibody, just to increase the overall stack of our Digimon. Then on top of that, he has a nice when Digivolving ability for Digivolving into him, where if we have a Tamer in play, then we can return 2 of the opponent's level 3 Digimon back to their hand for some extra bounce and control. Then on top of that, the inheritable ability is what he's really in the deck for some extra protection, where during all turns, when this Digimon with Garurumon or Omnimon in its name would be deleted by battle, then we get to trash 2 cards with the same level in this Digimon's Digivolution source to prevent the deletion, basically acting like another instance of Garurumon X Antibody in case we don't see that card. Next, on to our Megas, I'm going to be running 3 copies of MetalGarurumon X Antibody. So, MetalGarurumon X Antibody is the primary Digimon we want to be Digivolving into to end on our stack outside of our Omnimon. So, this card can Digivolve off of any MetalGarurumon, even off-color ones, for 1. And on top of that, he has a really good when Digivolving ability where we get to unsuspend this Digimon. Then this Digimon gains the blocker ability until the end of the opponent's next turn. So that just allows us to want to be more aggressive with our level 5s, because if we have to end our turn, then we might as well end our turn by Digivolving a level 5 into MetalGarurumon X Antibody to be able to gain a level 6 blocker, which is pretty good, with some possible protection on him actually surviving the opponent's attack because of our Sagittarius mode's inheritable ability and Garurumon X Antibody's inheritable ability. Or if we really wanted to, we could use that unsuspend if our turn didn't pass to be extra aggressive by getting an extra swing in. Then on top of that, he has a nice secondary ability where during your turn once per turn, when this Digimon becomes unsuspended, if this Digimon has MetalGarurumon or X Antibody in its Digivolution source, then we could return all of the opponent's Digimon with the lowest level back to their hand for some added control. And the base MetalGarurumon that I'm opting to use is going to be the Classic Collection MetalGarurumon at 3 copies. So what's making the Classic Collection MetalGarurumon really, really good for this deck is how cheap it is to Digivolve into him. So his when Digivolving ability allows us to gain a memory for every 4 cards in our hand. So if we have, let's just say, a hand of 8, which is that magic number that Garurumon wants to be at least, then we could Digivolve into him for essentially 2, making him a really tempo-efficient card to just use to climb our stages with. Then, on top of that, he has a nice when attacking ability of his own for some even extra added control, where if we have 8 or more cards in our hand and a Tamer in play, then we could return one of the opponent's Digimon that has an on-delete ability back to the bottom of the owner's deck, and then trash all of their Digivolution sources on that Digimon. So it's really good at just dealing with those on-delete abilities, which there's a decent amount of, for even more extra control, but the primary purpose of MetalGarurumon is its when Digivolving ability for that extra tempo to be able to go into our X Antibody relatively easily. And then as far as the level 7s go, I'm only going to be running 2 copies of Omnimon just as a game finisher. So this is the BT05 version of Omnimon, and we're using him for his when Digivolving abilities of being able to unsuspend himself and blitz to be able to get an extra swing with, even if the memory passes onto the opponent's side. If we do just need to end the turn on him after a whole bunch of chipping, that's okay, because he has some built-in protection where during all turns, when this Digimon would be deleted or returned to the hand or deck by an opponent's card effect, then we get to trash a level 6 Digimon from his Digivolution source to prevent this Digimon from leaving play, which is pretty good, especially since we could have multiple level 6s in his inheritable source to make this Digimon even stickier, especially paired up with our Sagittarius inheritable, and paired up with our Sagittarius inheritable and our Garurumon X Antibody inheritable that also will prevent him from being deleted by battle, making him super highly synergistic and a very sticky body for the opponent to deal with. Next, onto the options, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Ice Wall because it's still just that good of a card to run, acting as one of the best defensive options in the game. So it has the main ability where all of the opponent's Digimon gains a 1 attacking of losing 2 memory until the end of their next turn, so it's taxing each and every one of their attacks, and if we're not leaving them with a whole bunch of memory, or they don't have a whole bunch of memory to work with, then it's just going to completely shut out their ability to attack entirely. Then on top of that, its security ability is basically Hammer Spark, where we get to gain 2 memory, effectively taking away 2 memory from them to, again, try to make it so that they are limited on what they can do and what they want to do. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Blue Memory Boost as just some extra consistency. So it has the main ability where we get to reveal the top 4 cards, add any blue Digimon among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. Then this card gets placed into the battle area for us to use the delay ability at a later turn to be able to gain 2 memory for some instant tempo. Then its security ability at worst just allows us to put it into the battle area, so we could still at least gain the 2 memory to make more powerful plays possible. And the last option of the deck is going to be 2 copies of X Antibody. So X Antibody is a pretty interesting option where it's always online as long as we have a Digimon in play. We could play this card without meeting its color requirements, and we want to use this card to just shove to the bottom of one of our Digimon's inheritable sources, as long as it doesn't have X Antibody in its Digivolution sources already. Then it also has a security ability where we get to gain 1 memory and add this card into our hand, so it's like half of a Hammer Spark, to again try to take away some of the opponent's possible tempo. Then the inheritable ability we want to gain out of this card is that during all turns, X Antibody can't be trashed from the Digivolution source by card effects, which is really, really powerful just because there still is a lot of decks that do want to try to manage and control your inheritable sources, and this will just have some protection against some of those types of decks and abilities. Then on top of that, it has a nice when attacking ability for us to utilize, where we could Digivolve this Digimon into a Digimon from our hand with X Antibody in its traits by paying its Digivolution cost. So we could use this effectively to just easily Digivolve into our X Antibody Digimon to gain all of the benefits of our X Antibody Digimon when we're attacking. So we could line up a power play where, let's just say we use our WereGarurumon to swing into the opponent's security twice, and then on that second swing, we could Digivolve into X Antibody basically right away to get an unsuspend and an extra swing with, or we could use this in combination more commonly with our MetalGarurumon to swing with our MetalGarurumon, get his when attacking ability off, then Digivolve right away into our MetalGarurumon X Antibody, making for some really good and powerful combo plays. And then as far as the tamers go, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Davis. So Davis is still just the best blue tamer that we have, where he's just going to be our stereotypical memory fixing tamer, always setting our memory to 3 if it's ever less than 3, but we're using him more so for the extra consistency, where his on-play ability states that we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, add a blue and a green Digimon from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom in any order. So even though we're not playing any green Digimon in the deck, we're still going to be adding a blue card, which the vast majority of our deck is blue Digimon, so he has a high chance of success, allowing us to pick and choose what we need and what we want out of what's revealed. And then the last card and last tamer of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Cool Boy. So Cool Boy is one of the best X Antibody support cards that we have, so we might as well run him. What he's doing is he has a nice on-play ability where we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, add 1 Digimon with X Antibody in its traits, and add 1 X Antibody option from among them into our hand, and then we get to place the rest on the bottom. So it's just looking for our X Antibody Digimons and our options to, again, help with the overall consistency of the deck. Then on top of that, he has another ability that we want to try to take advantage of, where during your turn, when one of your Digimon Digivolves into a Digimon of the same level with X Antibody in its traits, then we get to suspend this tamer to gain a memory and draw a card. So it's just helping us generate some extra resources for just doing something we are already trying to do, which is Digivolve into our X Antibody type Digimon. And then there's still just a whole bunch of different tech and tools, all depending on what you're trying to gain out of the deck. So if you wanted to, we could incorporate a little bit of a red splash and utilize some red options, namely a delicate plan, just because we want to try to make our swings into the opponent's security as safe as we possibly can. Theoretically, if you wanted to, you could use the plugins for that same style of purpose, but a delicate plan is still just unique in terms of shutting out the opponent's options in security, and we do have a Hero as a good generic memory fixing tamer that increases our overall DP of our Digimon, which is something Blue generally struggles with, on top of being a red tamer to be able to line up a delicate plan. But if you don't want to run Hero, then you could run Matt and Sora just for some extra memory, and it's a good duo tamer that's actually fitting in both Blue and Red. But as far as an alternate win condition go, you could always still splash in a hybrid just because we're trying to break all of the opponent's security as quickly and efficiently as we can, and then we are still going to be playing around with tamers, so that just allows us to want to use a hybrid to swing with a hybrid potentially for game. But we do still have a whole bunch of different Gabumons that we could think about including in the deck, so you could tech and tune your Gabumon package to really be anything you want it to be out of what you have. I think the best alternative Gabumon is going to be the promo, just because he could help dig out our tamers. And similarly to that, depending on your whole supporting lineup for the X Antibodies, we still have various other Garurumons that we could also run. So if you're going to be running the MetalGarurumon from BT1, then you kind of want to run the Garurumon from BT1 to be able to swing, get an unsuspend off, and then do a whole bunch of other shenanigans depending on what your inheritable abilities are and your current stack is. Then, to go along with the fact that we do have a whole bunch of solid substitutions, you could consider running the WereGarurumon from BT7 as another good card to want to play your tamers or gain value for having a tamer already in play, making him a cheap level 5 to just get into. And then on top of that, he has a good inheritable ability to help us gain memory when we're going to be unsuspending, which we tend to do quite a lot of in this deck. And another WereGarurumon that you could think about utilizing is the Classic Collection, just for some extra card draw and, again, more memory management. But like I stated, we do have a whole bunch of different ways that we could take the deck in, all depending on your level 6 of choice that's not MetalGarurumon X Antibody. So again, if you're running the BT1 MetalGarurumon, you kind of want to run some more on-play abilities, and you want to run various different tech and tools that he could take advantage of, because we're going to be splitting apart our inheritable sources. And then we even could run the promo MetalGarurumon as just a really good card to digivolve into for some extra card draw to line up our abilities easier, and the fact that the opponent won't be able to attack into him is still super valuable, so that way we could at least sit on a MetalGarurumon and have him be relatively annoying for the opponent to deal with while we wait for our MetalGarurumon X Antibody. Then, as far as some other level 7s go, you could run kind of whatever Omnimons you feel like you want to run that would best support the deck that you can run, and we even have Omnimon X Antibody as another Omnimon and X Antibody for us to take advantage of, especially with the X Antibody option. That just allows us to use our Omnimon to digivolve into Omnimon X Antibody relatively easily with. Then we do have a whole bunch of options to try to help control the opponent's field. So we have cards like Kaitis Breath, Rattlestar, Metal Storm, all just to bounce and control the opponent's field. And then we do have a whole bunch of other tech and utility options like Hammer Spark to just allow us to extend our plays or enhance our plays. Then, as far as some other tamers that we could run, there's a good substitution for Davis if you don't have a Davis in the form of BT8TK. And then on top of that, we do have a couple of other tamers you could think about splashing, just for some added tempo and extra resources. So Matt Ishida from BT6 is really good just because we're still interacting with Garurumons and Gabumons. Even though we're not playing Bond, we could still utilize his ability to gain extra memory and draw cards when we move them out of the raising area. And we even have Nokia we could try to think about utilizing, just because we could line up some good Nokia plays, all again depending on the type of low-level lineup that you're going to be working with. So hard playing Nokia to hard play a Gabumon to then digivolve it into an X Antibody could be a very fruitful maneuver that you could think about utilizing, on top of being able to reduce the cost of our Digivolutions into our higher stages is still just a good thing to use. But that just goes to show that there's still a whole bunch of room for tech and different options that you could think about playing, all depending on how you actually want to approach the deck. And I think that extra flexibility just makes it a really fun and interesting deck to want to play and build. And I think this is a really solid core or shell to be building off of when you're building your own. And I think it's going to be a super strong and powerful deck, especially with all of those different tech and tools that we could use to be able to handle various different situations that the meta might be asking us. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.